Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're not one of the 12 people that are watching. Today I'm going to be talking about all the different ways in which I learned Spanish and kind of rating them and reviewing which ways I thought were best. So I have plenty of help here. I've got notebooks and a bunch of heavy books. So I first started learning Spanish several years ago. I'm by no means fluent, barely conversational. I was when I was like, I hadn't studied it in about a year, but before that I was about almost conversational. So I first started learning Spanish 5 years ago maybe. I just really started like, I got a phrase book and I just started, you know, looking at them and practicing phrases, and then eventually I got Duolingo. Found out what Duolingo was. This is just a quick overview, and then I'll like go into each one and what I thought about it. So then I went into Duolingo and learned phrases and words and just, you know, did that whole thing. After that, I was in university and I took 2 semesters worth of classes. So I took beginner Spanish for however long university, 8 months. And then after that, I went down to Mexico for 2.5 weeks, part of a school trip, not related to Spanish. It was an Indigenous Studies program. I went down there and, you know, of course I had a bunch of Spanish speakers around me, so I was learning a lot of that. Other than that, let's see, here I've got a couple of visual dictionaries. So, let's see. Explain that more later. Also Fluent in 3 Months by Benny Lewis, which brings me into another way in which I learned Spanish, which I did, let's see what it is. I think it was after I learned, yeah, after I studied it, I bought this. It's Language Hacking Spanish. So yeah. So the ways in which I have learned Spanish and I'll be reviewing right now are through just phrase books and like researching words and stuff like that. Like that would include being in dictionaries and looking through dictionaries. I learned by Duolingo. I learned in class, doing Spanish class 3 times a week, I think it was. And also by Benny Lewis's Language Hacking Spanish. Now I'm focusing just on Spanish right now. I have learned other languages. I grew up in Canada, so I grew up learning French. I learned French since kindergarten until about grade 10. I was really quite good at French, but then I didn't really like my French teachers, so I just kind of stopped learning French and kind of lost all of it. And now I know a few phrases, which will actually be a new video sometime. I'm gonna make a fool of myself attempting to speak French, you know, trying to hopefully get it back. So I'd love to be fluent in French. And then after French, I learned Spanish. That was when my love for Spanish started. I didn't really learn languages for a couple years after I stopped learning French, and then I realized I really wanted to. And I picked Spanish just because it's spoken in so many countries and I really wanted to travel, so that was a good fit. After that, what did I learn? After that I studied Italian. I'm studying Italian right now. I was studying it in classes, and then coronavirus happened, and now I'm just doing kind of independent study with Duolingo, and I've got a couple books and just reviewing stuff and trying to go further with that. So there's that. Other languages I've practiced, I studied Russian for a couple months. I did a couple months of classes, as well as like independent study on my own time. I've learned like a few phrases in Portuguese. I've learned a few German phrases. My mom went to Germany when she was younger, so I have like German tapes and stuff. I tried learning Arabic. I found it very difficult. So I would love to learn Arabic someday, but not right now because I'm so focused on Italian. Let's see, what other languages? Learned a little bit. I studied Swedish for a couple weeks. I like to I get really obsessed with language for a few weeks, and then I don't know. A new language intrigues me, so then I jump to the new language. Anyway, so this one is focused on Spanish. It's not just for Spanish. You can apply this to kind of any language you're learning. It's just, this is the one language I've tried the most different ways trying to learn it. So, all right, so first off is going to be phrase books. That's the first way I learned it. So, so this is my Latin American Spanish phrase book by Lonely Planet. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. So when I first got into languages, I wanted to, when I first got into Spanish, I wanted to learn enough so I could travel and be able to kind of communicate. So a phrase book is definitely a good way to learn a few phrases. The thing that's bad with the phrase book is it's hard to then understand what the other person is saying. So if you're looking through this, like the first page will say survival phrases and numbers and stuff like that. You know, so it's got like, hello, goodbye, please, thank you, you're welcome. Yes, no, excuse me, sorry, I understand, I don't understand. One moment, please, help, where's the toilet? And then 1 through 10. So those are all good phrases to know. Whenever I'm traveling, I always try and know how to say hello, goodbye, thank you, stuff like that. Just, I find it really polite. So yes, phrase books are a great way to learn certain phrases, but it's really hard to understand people saying it. Also, pronunciation can be very bad from phrase books just because it has it like spelled out like how you would say it, how you would pronounce it, so that's great, but you never get the accent right. It's very hard to deal with pronunciation. Good if you want to look at writing and spelling and stuff like that. Great. My suggestion would be to take these phrases and kind of write them out. I find writing anything out will help translate it into your brain somehow. There's been studies on that. I don't really know why. Good for beginners. Could be really good for people who are further along, who had taken the class and just want to learn more phrases, because they will already have the basics of what to say and how things are pronounced. And then they can just, you know, there's a dictionary in the back and they can just start adding words to their vocab. That'd be very good for that. 2 other books. This one is really freaking heavy. So there's this one. It's not the heavy one. It's the Spanish-English Visual Bilingual Dictionary. So I got this one several years ago, around the same time, a little bit after I got the phrase book, to just kind of, you know, learn some more Spanish words. And yeah, so it's just got pictures of everything, and then it'll say in English and in Spanish. So very nifty. I really quite like this. Not great for first learners. If you're just starting on a language, vocab is not what you need. What you need is, I'm sorry to say it because most people hate verb structure, but you need verb structure. Once you're able to say I want, I am, I this, I that, you or them or whoever, you can start getting into vocab. Because once you know a few verbs and like, once you know verbs and conjugation and how to say I, you, this, that, then everything else is just vocab. So this is what I'd recommend later on. And then there's the Firefly 5-Language Visual Dictionary. It is really heavy. This is what it looks like. It is really thick. This is probably the biggest, no, this is the biggest book I own, including textbooks from university. So this one is 5 languages, so it's English, Spanish, French, German, and Italian. Just open it up. It has pictures of everything, and then lists of what it is in 5 languages, how to say it. Just like the visual dictionary, I really like this one because it's got 5 languages in it, which is great because I've studied French, Spanish, and I'm studying Italian right now. So really great, but it's massive. Like, it is huge. There's no way you are taking this anywhere. You can't fit it in a backpack. It's just like, this sucker is staying at home. Whereas this one, yes, it's only Spanish, but it's quite, in comparison, it's very lightweight. So you can just take this along with you. But once again, both of these I would recommend once you know some Spanish, because once you know how to say most, like, conjugate verbs and say kind of the basic stuff, then everything else is just vocab. Like just going into the food section and just learning how to say all these different types of food. Really useful. Next thing would be Spanish classes. These are my notebooks from my Spanish classes in university. It's very thin pencil marks, you can't really see it. But yeah, I would say that out of all of them, all the techniques, I think classes are my favorite. I grew up learning French, as I said, and I never really liked my teachers. I don't know, I just didn't really like my French teachers, so I never really tried. I took Spanish class at my university, didn't like my teacher there either. Didn't like my teacher, so that made it a bit difficult, but I did learn quite a bit. I knew a lot of it already just from my previous Spanish studies, just on Duolingo and through phrasebooks, etc. But yeah, classes are really useful because they will correct your pronunciation. They will like kind of show you what you really need to speak. It will also help teach you how to listen to Spanish and actually talk and hear people say something back and understand it, and it really helps with that, especially if you're taking a course that has like labs. So not just the teacher telling you stuff, but then you having conversation labs where you'll be talking with a partner. So highly recommend that. The bad thing about this is obviously you have to, it'll cost money. Usually my Italian class is actually free, but most language classes will cost money. My Spanish classes were no different. And also it tends to be a bit slow. So if you are a fast learner and know kind of some basics already, it's a bit slow. But taking these classes, the 2 semesters of Spanish, got me to a level where I can really self-teach myself. So yeah, because I know the basics now. I understand the accent. My accent's still not good, I'm sure, but yeah, that's what I have to say about that. I just remembered I forgot to mention Duolingo. So for those of you who don't know, Duolingo is a language learning app. It's right in here. You see that? Opens up like this. It's a bad glare. And then there's my Italian. So how this app works is you just will go to the language and you'll start learning. Oh, there. So if I change to my Spanish one, it's like telling me to restore because I canceled. This is a Spanish one, and you can go through and do the lessons. I personally quite like Duolingo. It's completely free. You can download it on your phone as an app, or you can just sign up on the website on the computer. Completely free. It does have a few ads, none that are like super annoying. You can get like a premium membership, but you don't need to. I would definitely recommend Duolingo for learning, for new learners. I think it's very good and useful. Some of their phrases are not very useful. It'd be like, I like cows, and I like this green dress, I like the green dress, and stuff like that. It's very basic. I recommend that, especially since it is completely free. You can just do it from your phone. You can just do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It'll really help. I do think the one thing I found with Duolingo is that I will forget the sentences and everything as soon as I'm done. Like the next day I won't really remember. So I like to, if I'm feeling really ambitious with Duolingo, I like to write down the sentences that I'm, you know, learning, and like kind of be like, hey, I like cows. I is this, like is that, cows is this, right? Just have it be very simple. And then after I took my Spanish classes, I went down to Mexico. Like I said, I went down to Mexico for 2.5 weeks, part of a different program. And I found that that was very helpful. I was at the point where I could understand most of what was being said, but I didn't quite know how to respond. But I found that was very useful. It really does get you into the kind of mechanics of it, of actually speaking it rather than just conjugating verbs and just theoretically doing vocab and making up sentences and stuff. So this is definitely helpful, especially if you're in full immersion mode. Very useful. I think that would be my number one. It is also very intimidating though to go to another country where they don't speak English most of the time and try and, you know, just be speaking another language the whole time. But very useful. The next one I'll be talking about is, I don't know if you, whoever's watching this knows who Benny Lewis is. If you don't, he wrote Fluent in 3 Months. Great book. I recommend it. It gives you tips and tricks and you know, talks about whatever you think is holding you back and stuff like that. Great book. He developed these books called language hacking. Now he's got Spanish, German, French, Italian. I only use this one a little bit just because I started using it at a time when I had already studied some Spanish, so I already knew a bunch of Spanish, and it was a little bit backwards for me. It just took me a little bit step back. But this is a great book for beginner learners who want to start speaking the language immediately, and people who don't care if they're saying everything exactly right. Because when you take a class, for example, you know, they're going to make sure you're using the proper verb structure, you know, you're using the proper the, everything has to be perfect with them, right? With this, not at all. You're going through, and he literally talks at the very beginning about how you're going to be talking like caveman for the first little bit, and that's fine because they can still understand what you're saying. And he really jumps into like, what are the conversations you're going to have first? Okay, you know, here, if I can pull this up. So it goes like, the first chapter is talking about me. So it'll be, you know, conversations, and it's like, hola, soy Sarah, ¿y tú? Hola, soy Pablo, ¿qué tal? Bien, gracias. ¿Y tú? Muy bien. It has a whole conversation right there, which you can follow along reading it, but also you can play it. It would have been a CD, you know, if this were old days, but it's online. You go online and you just access the conversations. I think the website is somewhere in here. Otherwise, you can just search language hacking Spanish and it'll come up. And you can listen to it while you're reading it, so you start to get the pronunciation. And so then, you know, you start going, figure it out. What do you think soy means? Which means I am. And you start going through and you start kind of breaking the sentences apart. And so then now, all of a sudden, just from like reading that conversation and breaking it apart, you now know how to say like, I am, and then say your name, right? And then it will slowly get into a bunch more phrases, and then where are you from, what's your nationality, what's your profession, and what's your interest, right? This is where, so it starts making it super simple so you can just start talking immediately. What are the first things you're gonna start hearing? People are gonna be asking you about yourself. Oh, where are you from? So you can start talking about where you learn how to talk about where you're from. Or, you know, the next chapter is about describing your interests, and so it's all about food. It's about talking about, oh, I like pizza, but I love, you know, chocolate. Starts getting the conversation going so you're actually speaking and able to listen and respond. Really, I haven't gone through this as much as I should, just because I was already, you know, at a decent level in Spanish, and so I already knew like correct verb structure and stuff, and to go back was a little bit for me. But not that he doesn't use correct verb structure, not that he doesn't teach you that, it's just not the focus. The focus is just straight up speaking, which is what most people learn language for. Most people don't want to be able to pick up a book and read it in Spanish. Most people want to be able to communicate with somebody else in that language. So definitely recommend these. So that's about it for my review. Quick little recap. Phrase books, good if you want to learn a few phrases, bad if you want to know pronunciation and be able to speak. Visual dictionaries, very useful, but only once you know some of the language already, the basics already. Classes, really good. The problem with them is that they'll teach you the proper way to say everything, not necessarily the way that people actually speak it. And they care a lot more about spelling and using the right verb and et cetera, rather than, okay, you can get your point across. Duolingo, great for beginner learners if they want to just spend 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. You do learn some of the language. It is hard to kind of communicate with just that though. Communicate with people if that's your goal. Going down to another country and, you know, immersing yourself in this language, great. I think it's great. Will really get you far in learning the language. But because you're speaking it, you might not know how to spell things or write things. So it's kind of one-sided. This, great for beginner learners. Great for people just starting out, don't know anything about the language. Wonderful for getting you to just speaking it. Well, it does teach you, if you pay attention, it teaches you how to write things and spell things. Also great. I think this is true for pretty much any language. The exception maybe being if you speak English, for example, like I do, that's your first language. The exception being would be languages with a different alphabet, because that is going to be quite a bit harder. And personally, I would say it's more useful to, say, take a class or something like that, so you're not just saying the words and you actually know how to spell them and know more about it. But that's just me. If you just want to know how to speak it, you can totally just go to the country and learn how to just speak it, or use the language tracking one. That's good for you to speak it. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that. But before I end this video, I was thinking about a couple tips of what I like to when I like to practice languages, what I do. I know that there's a great tip of, if you're trying to learn vocab, is you put post-it notes or like sticky notes on different things in your house or your room, and like as you walk by, and they'll be in the other language. So as you walk by, you just practice them. Like, oh, you know, you go to the door and it says what door is in whatever language you're learning. That's a really good tip. Another great tip is to listen to music in that language. It starts just kind of getting your brain understanding the other language. So it's not just like, because when you first hear language, sometimes it's just like you can't even understand what they're saying. With listening to music, it starts training your brain so that you can kind of understand, oh, okay, like they're saying words, they're saying tenses. It just gets you used to it. So that's another great one. I think my favorite, though it's I find it more difficult, is watching TV shows or movies in other languages with subtitles on. Now, if you're really, you know, trying to go hard with it, you can watch the subtitles in your target language, so you know exactly what's being said, you know, like how to spell it in that language. If not, you can watch it in English and just kind of go like, you'll start picking up a few phrases. And a lot of people don't know this, but Netflix, basically every Netflix original series or movie has a list of audio and subtitle options, usually at least 5 or 6. Now, I live in Canada, so almost everything on Netflix is English or French because we're a bilingual country. So that's really useful. I know in the US, almost everything has Spanish in there. It's English or Spanish, but the Netflix originals specifically have it in a bunch of different languages. I was looking at one the other day. It had it in English, which was its original language. It had French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, German. I think that was it. Otherwise, you can look for episodes of your favorite show that, you know, showcase that language a little bit more. It's easiest if you watch a show that you've already seen before, because you kind of already know what's going on, so you can infer a bit from context. But also, you know, watching a show you've seen a million times in another language might be a little boring, so you might want to try a new show. As well as watching shows that are filmed and originally in those other languages, like Italian. Like right now I'm watching some Italian shows that are not coming to mind. I think one of them is called Baby. It's in like the streets of Rome. It's on Netflix. But if you want to watch like those, then it'll start to get you seeing the gestures and the cultural differences in that country. So then when you travel there, you kind of understand it a bit more. Otherwise, I know you can find, like I know YouTube has German versions of things and French versions of things, and you can start look on there. As well as my last tip would be to find YouTubers or Instagrammers or basically anyone on social media who is speaking in the other language, because then you will slowly start to pick up on things. Whatever language you're learning, Damon and Joe are great because they like to speak a lot of different languages. They haven't really made new videos in a while, but like they speak in Portuguese and French and Spanish, and Joe speaks in Italian, Damon speaks in German, right? Like, so you're learning a lot of different languages. You can watch a video, they'll have videos of, like I know Joe on their channel, Joe has a video where she makes Italian pasta and she only speaks in Italian the whole time. So that's pretty cool. I know they have Spanish videos and just videos where they go to different countries and they then will speak that language, so you'll start to pick up stuff that way. Also on social media, you know, I would follow different Instagram stars who then will speak in their native language on their stories, so I start to listen to that, or you know, their captions will be in different language and I'll try and pick it apart. Same with Twitter, same with TikTok, same with any of the social medias. So yeah, I think that's it for the video. I hope you guys found this useful. I don't know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you have any more Spanish speaking tips or any language learning tips, please put them down below. Yeah, that's about it. My socials are in the description box if you want to follow. I'll have links to all of these books if you want. I'll have links to the Duolingo website and all the books I talked about in the description box. And yeah, so that's about it for today. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. See you next time.